And yeah, see, then you got to bring Zoom to the front, and then Zoom says this meeting is being sent to a third party. Got it. And now it finishes loading, redirecting to Facebook Live page, and now it's live.
We are live now?
We are live now. We are live.
Yes. Hello.
Hello.
Hello, Sil. Hello, everyone.
Hello, Bina. Hello,
It's
Bina.
really nice to see you, Sil. And
Yeah.
it's really nice to be here again after very long.
Yeah.
And we were missing this, but it was all
Yeah.
because of appropriateness and, of course, by attunement. So we were busy doing some other stuff, but the most amazing part is we never lose our connection or connectivity with the Mornus. And I'm so thankful for Sil for this because he always bring, even in the most mundane things, like very trivial jobs or like simple things, but he brings Mornus. And that was my daily dose for that. And I'm so thankful and appreciative for all these things. Because if I would lose that connectivity, it's not going to be like, okay, yes, I will forget. No, we don't forget things. But the focus and the attention is the most important thing in our life. Because if we are not focusing on where we really want to focus, then of course our focus and attention is going to be focused on something else, which might not be our priority. And that is going to, of course, really highlight and emphasized in our life, which I was not really keen to do that because right now at this stage of my life, I need that moreness, this awareness. I want to learn and grow. Of course, it is going to be never-ending process, but I'm on a very basic, very, very foundational stage right now, and I don't want to lose my connectivity. And that is something I was missing. That it brings out so much more when you guys there you ask question, you share your comments and thoughts. It brings a lot, and it of course and then still start elaborating it and then go into detail. It not only nourish your mind, but it also gives so much energy. I feel that personally that it gives so much energy to the soul and heart also. It is not only that there's just a mind uh, mindful thinking. No, it is more than that for me. I feel that I belong to something which I really, really, really love, and it gives me so much energy and so much awareness. Yes, it is going to be another. Now we are beginning again after very long, and we are going to discuss. And of course, Silver's keen to start where we actually just stop. So it's
Yeah.
like, okay, it's not going to matter that wherever we just dropped, we are continue doing this. So hello again, Sil, and thank you so much
Hello,
for being here
Bina.
again.
Hello, Bina. Hello, Bina. I'm just still trying to share it here.
Yes.
Facebook being
Yes.
difficult.
No problem. No problem.
Right. To
I
put
can keep
this,
going on and
yeah,
on and on
yeah.
about my experiences.
Oh, Pedro has joined us. Hello, Pedro. This is
I
brilliant.
don't, I
This
don't
is
need
brilliant.
anything.
Yeah. So just and Janet is here. Ah, fantastic,
Hello, Pedro.
fantastic,
Welcome.
fantastic, fantastic. Hello, Pedro.
Oh
Hello, hello,
yes.
hello, Janet.
How much we were missing you, Janet?
Very much, very
Yes.
much. Yes,
Yes.
very much.
Yes.
Very much. All right. I just have to do a few more tweaks here, Bina.
No, no
So
problem. No problem, sir.
just explain the book itself as you understand.
Okay. Okay. It's a big, big, huge question. But
Oh,
of course,
I know, I know,
I'm
I
my
know.
best. So for me, this whole idea of Nobelia-Living and of course new nobles, um, I personally feel that they personally for me they provide me a completely different spectrum. Like, okay, I was aware of the some bit of Sufism and some of Hinduism from the yogis and sannyasis. So I know a bit about them. I cannot call myself an expert on that, but I
Although
know
this has
something
nothing to
about
do
it.
with it. Yeah.
Yes, no. So this is what I'm telling you, trying to share that this is. I know about that philosophy that they were the whole ideology and also from the Buddhism to actually eliminate all the possible potential temptations from your life and then focus on something. And when I start listening to this story and at the idea of new nobles and Nobelia-Living, it was a drastic, huge, like completely different and opposite of what I used to have this idea of spirituality in my mind. And I was
Ah,
amazed, and I'm still
yes,
amazed with that
yes. Yeah,
because that it is completely different to eliminate everything and then
yeah.
try to focus on yourself and of course on awareness and consciousness and divine source of energy and all that. No, but new nobles projecting and they are exuding this way they are living the life when everything in the potential temptations and everything they are available, not in any negative sense, but like okay, abundance in money, abundance in art and other things which can be very distracted, but they are doing this deliberately, having all that abundance around them and of course inside them, and is still choosing, practicing their choices impeccably, but of course nobly. They are ahead. So that is something completely different too, because I think that okay, I assume that everyone else also aware of course about that how the yogis and the sannyasis and Sufis used to just get completely isolated and not getting involved into any kind of normal activities just to be focused on spirituality. But this idea of new nobles is completely different. They are fantastic debaters. They are fantastic communicator. They are
But
marvelous even
when you
and
say
actually.
debaters, be very careful because most people have a particular idea of debating. Discussers,
Okay,
not
so no.
debaters. Yeah.
Oh yes.
They
Okay,
don't
okay,
debate.
okay.
They
So
discuss, yes, but not
yes,
debate.
okay. So yes, yes. And of course like sharer because they have a completely different way of doing all these things,
Correct.
and
Correct.
and of course the way they project themselves, the way they present themselves as living art, in every sense they have abundance, and
Yes.
still they choose in every aspect of their life impeccability and Mornus and nobility, and that
It's a
is something
choice.
completely different from
Choice.
conventional idea of spirituality for me. This is
Yes.
really
Yes. It's practical.
true modern spirituality, practical
Yeah.
spirituality,
Yeah.
and of course, futuristic spirituality, I must say, because they are not uh, limiting themselves for anything. Like they are keen to learn, they're keen to grow, they are interacting, they
Yes.
love to interact with other people. They're not in isolation, sitting in isolation and trying to
No.
contemplate something. No,
No. And it's not
they
theoretical
just
either, not
present.
intellectual. Not
Yes,
intellectual. Not
yes, they
intellectual.
present their
Very important.
ideas, their thoughts, their feelings, they
Practical.
share their heart, and yes, and open for of course the input from other people, and then they discuss,
Yes.
and
Yes.
then found
Yes.
the crux, the
Exactly.
whole
Exactly.
thing is so practical spirituality,
Yeah.
actually living
Yeah.
spiritually. It is not just a spirituality outside the life, it is living
Yeah.
spiritually, living nobly, living bornness. This is so amazing. So for me, this whole book is about this,
Yes.
giving us, for me, that to give a complete drastic opposite of the conventional ideas of spirituality and
Exactly.
intellectualism also.
Exactly. And to present it practically. Right. So this is the project, right? This idea of nobleness in its pure form, nothing to do with hereditary or lords and all that nonsense and rubbish, right? That is a complete this corruption and perversion of the concept of being noble. So this concept of being noble is to me, and the idea that I had in writing the book and creating this society and this whole universe that they are in and the grand story, because it's a story on top of a story connected to another story and another one and another one. There's a lot involved, right? A huge project. But the core idea was to take my underlying philosophy, which is a cohesive and comprehensive philosophy, the philosophy of appropriateness and the A plus philosophy, right? There's a lot there. But instead of writing it out in a treatise and, in like an usual boring way that you write it out in a, nonfiction, no. I said, that's boring. Ooh, it's like you don't really get to see it and know it. So I said, this is not a good way to share and communicate this. Because what I have is so much more than simply just ideas and concepts. This is practical, and I wanted to show it as a story with characters and characters that are applying this, putting it into use. Because then, even though each and every single detail of the philosophy is not mentioned and specified, doesn't matter. You get a sense of the Mornus involved. You get a sense of the whole concept through its application, right? Through the characters like Biella and the other aspirants and Ursula and so on, right? You get an idea of what it is. And so
Yes.
this was my point. I wanted to show this in practical application, because at the very core of everything that I stand for, it's all about application. Without application, it's all meaningless, right? So way of impeccability, which is the core of it all, which is it is a series of tools. It's not a belief system. It's not saying, come and believe me, follow me. No, it's tools that you use to create your own sensibility, your own sobriety, your own impeccability, your own personal philosophy of practical application. They tools, right? Like the tools of perspective shifting, thinking it through to the end, and so on, right? These are all tools. So, and then the way of impeccability is the core foundation of a very unique, extra, uh, you can say a very precise and perhaps somewhat exaggerated society that are taking way of impeccability, and they're saying, we want to go more, we want to go further. So Nobelia, this is the home planet within the agglomeration, which is in this galaxy. This is a planet where this group has come together. It's a corporation actually, but the corporation is a group of people for whom pursuing learning, taking it as far as you can go. This is their passion. This is what makes them tick. This is what they live for. Everything else doesn't matter, right? Now, in the pursuit of this passion for moreness, for learning, for growing, spirituality, impeccability, your tools of being, just competence, and all of the things of how much you can be as a human being. Now, pursuing independence of being and all sorts of wonderful things. They also, to them, being noble is a big deal. And nobility, they define as bonus goodness. It's not something that they feel everybody should do. They certainly don't think everybody needs to do what they do. It just happens to be what they are interested in. And so it's a voluntary society. You can come and join it if you want to, but they don't say everybody should do this. This is a very important point, right? It's very, very, very important. Even though I repeatedly emphasize this point, that what I am sharing is not for everybody. And I don't think it is supposed to be for everybody. No. Still, people assume because I'm sharing it, they take it for granted that when people share stuff like this, that they are saying it's everybody must do this, right? And then they start to think, but you saying my way of being isn't right and my culture. I'm not saying anything about your culture. Simply because I have a culture that I like and I do, doesn't mean your culture, by contrast, is deficient or bad. Nonsense. No, yours is a wonderful culture, but that's a culture that you into. I'm into my culture, right? So one of the core aspects of the new nobility and this culture, and in this greater political environment of the agglomeration, they had a hand in setting it all up, is to this concept of celebrating, right? Which means I enjoy being me and I enjoy you being you. I enjoy your difference. I don't just accept it and acknowledge it and tolerate it. No, I celebrate. I love difference. Difference is magical. Yeah. So part of this culture, thus, is the celebration of difference. And it acknowledges that here is a place on Nobelia for those for whom they have only one thought. And this is self-improvement, personal development, their spirituality, their Mornus, their soul, the issue of death, all of the stuff, right? The bigger questions in life. They're not saying, like most people, yeah, those are heavy questions, and I know I should be thinking about them, but I've got other stuff to do. I'll do it later. Well, for the new nobles and the aspirants, they are people who say, no, not later, now. I want to do this now. This interests me now. I can't put it off. This is, to me, it's just too important. So it's different priorities, different importance, right? Now the world needs everybody. So this is very important to understand that this is in no way a critique by implication of anybody. No, it's a celebration of these weirdos who do this, right? And they have a lot of things that are very unique and different in their society, and that's why they are a society that lives on their own planet, right? And it's open to anybody. There's no secretiveness. Anybody can visit. They do have visitors, but remote and out of the way, so they don't get too many. You got to be serious to come there. But there's nothing hidden, nothing secret, right? It's completely open and transparent society. Now, the other thing that's interesting about the new nobility is that most of them do not live on Nobelia because they live in attunement. The grand spirituality, this grand practical concept of spirituality that Bina alluded to. Their spirituality is exceedingly practical. And as such, they apply and do. And one of the core aspects of their spirituality is living in attunement with the universe, right? Which means that you're paying attention to the flow of energies, to the Mornus involved, to force of circumstance, to how life comes at you, and particularly you're paying attention to anomalies. And it just so happens to be that the universe takes, once they become new nobles, and it spreads them out all across the agglomeration, right? And so you end up finding yourself living in a community, in a society, and you there. And just you being there, is you are there to be and to illustrate that there are other ways of being, there are other options. And so they don't do anything specifically except simply exist. But in their existence, they provide an incredible service, right? So they spread out all across the agglomeration. Everybody's aware of the new nobility, right? So they just live out there and don't particularly do anything. Of course, people, because they into learning and growing and paying attention, they come and ask them for advice and stuff like that. But it's not the main function. Just stay available should somebody want it. Not everybody utilizes it, but it's there. But mainly, they're just examples of being. Then, as a corporation, you also serve time and you work in the corporation, and some are there all the time, and some you go and do your service, and the corporation will say, "Please come, we need you," and then you work. And so the corporation is the core to all of this, right? It's a very spiritual corporation. It's a benefit corporation. Their mandate is to promote being. That's it. That's the corporate mandate. Promote being. Now, as a corporation, they also engage in many particular activities. Like they have products that they sell, services, learning growth services, a lot of stuff they do. Help new corporations and all stuff like this. But they are also the new nobility or the diplomatic core of the agglomeration. So they get paid to be diplomats, right? Because they're very sought after as diplomats because they're exceedingly honest, they're very thoughtful, they have lots of awareness and strategy and all of the stuff. It's in the story examples. And then also they take care of interplanetary transport. This is the preamble to the story, and you have to read the introduction to see how this comes about, because they're the only ones who have access to the great gravity engines, which allows for the distance between stars, right? Because in a galaxy, like if we want to go to Alpha Centauri without regular technology, it's going to take you 4 years to get there, right? So it's very slow. It's not practical. But with the great gravity engines, it's a couple of minutes, right? You can go all over the galaxy and between galaxies even. But they control this. And there's a long story to it. There's a deeper logic to it. And then there's the gods that get involved. And it's a whole big big, wonderful story, lots of complexity, layer upon layer upon layer. And I want to emphasize this. I don't want to go over the whole story again, but this layeredness, this is deliberate in the story, right? I love multi-layeredness, and there's always more, right? So when you're reading, when I used to read, did the author intend this, or did it just kind of come about? Is it me looking and seeing more layers? I never knew, right? I could only guess whether it was by intent or not. Well, in my case, it's most decidedly intended, right? So there's all this complexity, and there's a point and a purpose to this complexity. It serves as a logic, right? And so the greater, bigger story, for instance, is the story of evolution and the responsibilities that go with evolution. And the greater question, even on top of that, is how would we evolve from humans into whatever comes next? Yes? I mean, we've evolved from animal, and there's still a lot of us that live with the animal brain, right? They have that animal brain. And if you look at some people, their behavior is not all that much different to animals, unfortunately. I mean, it's a horrible thing to say, but it's a sad reality. Some people live very roughly and crudely and primitively in terms of their intents, right? It's all about dominance and bullying and, savagery and violence. That's their life. Not much difference to, the life of or I don't know, a wildebeest or a lion or any particular animal, doesn't matter, an ape or a baboon or something, right? Very simple. So we have to say, what now? If we are going to evolve, what is that involved? Yeah, what kind of awareness? What would you do? What's point, purpose, logic, all of it, right? Mornus. So this is a big deal that's part of new nobility, logic, and their story, right? And the deeper story of the story. We're following a particular individual, Biella, as a representation of all the Mornus, right? And also the Mornus to come. So the first chapter, now all the chapters have a very particularness to them. And I want to put this in context because this, I've made it into a course, very profound, extended, big course. And this course is part of the Mornus project, of which the new Nobles course, a nobility course, it's called Nobleness, Nobility, Noble, right? Being noble. That's the name of the course. It's part of the Mornus project, and there are two other major courses that are part of the Mornus project, which is capital H hearing and the psychology of the superiority paradigm, right? And all of that is the core course that comes first. That's Way of Impeccability, right? So Way of Impeccability, and then you go on and do the Mornus project. So this is one of the core, the three courses in the Mornus project, and it's the main course, the culmination of everything, right? So if you do Way of Impeccability, then next you do the psychology of superiority paradigm, capital H hearing, and these are all core understandings which are inherent to the new nobility, right? And what their societies, then they go further and get nobility and the Mornus and all of the nuance, sophistication, and exquisiteness, right? So the point of the Mornus project is exquisiteness. Yes, Bina, you let me know if there are any questions, right? Norma, I didn't mean to ignore you. So hello, Norma, and hello, Cheryl also. But I'm thrilled you here, Norma, Amron. I love it that you're here. Just do one. Brilliant. All right, and you too, Cheryl. I'm super glad you're here. So now we are in this point. I want to just run over the chapters because we're going to come to chapter 13. It's a very cool chapter. And I want to catch up with the chapters real quick. Right, so the introduction, there's the seeding the dream, it's called, which sets it all up, right? And it's a prehistory, and then we jump in time and we come to Biella. But seeding the dream is all about how the project started to go out into this galaxy and the development of the great gravity engines and the philosophy and the logic and the gods come into it and everything. So it's a big deal. That it's quite a long introduction, but it's a very big deal. And then we have chapter 1. Chapter 1 is called Just One Word. And it is a discussion between Biella and her friends, the other aspirants. And it's a deep discussion about a core conception and how valuable this is, right? So this is a very big starting point because that one word that rules everything and determines everything and connects everything to everything is central to the whole philosophy. It's a very, very big deal. And then the next chapter is about perspective shift and getting answers and attunement and anomalies, right? So each chapter has a lot in it. Then the third chapter, Biella and the New Nobility. The second chapter is called That Infernal Machine, by the way. So it's a very, very fun, very different kind of a side story in a sense, but it's a standalone. But then the story itself starts, Biella and the New Nobility. And this is establishing the new nobility and them as a society and how they behave as a society and what they do in the greater agglomeration and, you know, the diplomatic side to it. But it's about strategy. It's about extrapolation. It's about awareness, anticipation, and how they are, their deep, deep, deep honesty and their positive ruthlessness, for instance, and their deep sobriety and stuff like that, right? Then we get the next chapter is Chameleons, called the Delegates, Chameleons. And Chameleons is in earlier as well. It comes into it in the third chapter. But Chameleons is a bit of a fish out of water, and he gives a alternative perspective because he's still a bit caught up in the superiority paradigm, and so we get to see things through his lens where he's impressed, but at the same time he's not comfortable, right? Because he's still stuck in the superiority paradigm, and we see the problems with it, and we see his psychology, and later on we see more of his psychology. But it is a contrast. That's where he's there. Then we get to Ursula. And Ursula is also one of the delegates that Biella is showing around that are from other planets that want to join the agglomeration. And of course, joining the agglomeration, a big part of it is being aware and understanding what the new nobility are about, because the new nobility are, they wrote the constitution for the agglomeration, and the agglomeration is the greater political entity. But of course, the new nobility are a very integral part of this, so they need to know. So they come and they want to see what it's all about, right? And Ursula is so impressed with this, and she is really special in the fact that her honesty overwhelms her. And even though she's very prominent and very successful, and she's up for the next leader of a planet, she says, "No, I want to be an aspirant." And this decision and the way it is made and why it is made, when you read her explanation of how it comes about, this is absolutely core to the whole story to understand. And the contrast between her and Chameleons is a very, very powerful, powerful point, right? Ursula is a wonderful character, absolutely splendid character. So this is a very core part there, her switch over, her saying, "I want to be an aspirant," right? And why she wants to be an aspirant. And her honesty and her commitment and her integrity, how she could not just leave it be. And there's a lot in that chapter, very powerful chapter. The next chapter is called Nobelia, where we explore the environment somewhat, the chapter itself. And then we come back to Ursula, right, in the next chapter, which is called Being Noble, where Ursula goes even further. Prompted by a question, a very deep and profound question from Biella. Says, "But why?" And now they start to explore what being noble actually means. And it's a very, very profound point again. Very big deal, right? So that's huge. That's really, really huge. Then we get into pursuing ideals, which is more of an exploration into the moreness of the culture and what's involved. And then we come to the next chapter, chapter 9, which is called Biala Noble, and we get into understanding a bit more about Biella. And Biella now becomes a new noble. She was technically an aspirant, even though she was so for a long, long time, and everybody thought of her as a new noble, but she actually technically takes that step, right? And we get to understand and know Biella a little more, which is wonderful. Then we come to a very, very key chapter again, right? A very central core chapter, right in the middle of the book. It's called the origin story. An origin story is a big deal. I'm not going to go into detail about it, but it is a myth and a fable that, and Biella tells the story. It's a part of the culture of the new nobility, and she tells it. And in the telling, she reveals and shares the point of the story, a very, very deep and profound perspective on other people that the new nobility have as a part of their nobleness. It's a very beautiful, wonderful story. It's very profound and very, very deep in how it reveals the Mornus underlying the new nobility and them as just the beauty of their being as people, right? So the origin story, very, very big deal, very profound deal. Then we have a chapter that goes somewhat back into the history, the next one. It's called An Earnest Dream, chapter 11. And this brings the young man into it. And the young man goes back, into the time when they were still on earth and the very, very start of the beginning. And, he's fundamental to starting the whole new nobility. But he shares Biella shares a story about him, about an idea, and it reveals Mornus-Thinking. And in it, there's, she and Ursula, they moving around Nobelia, and you get to see lots of the tree city and all sorts of stuff. So you get the sense of the whole place. So it's a cool chapter. Then the next one is called The Intent of Image, chapter 12. That's the chapter where we ended on before I got ill and had to stop. So the intent of image, again, it reveals more about the new nobility, right? Layer upon layer. You think you sort of got an idea what they're all about. Oh, there's more, right? And this is the way they dress and their appearance and image. It's a very, very sophisticated point that they do. And it introduces another wonderful character, Dream Deer, and just a wonderful interlude of Mornus. But there's very subtleness to the chapter that is illustrating the Mornus to the new nobility. That nothing is casual about it, right? Everything is thoughtful, very, very, very thoughtful and layered and nuanced and sophisticated. Now it's extremely sophisticated. And we see this there. And we see how Biella interacts with Dream Deer, who's just somebody who lives on the planet, so it's a uniqueness. Just a moreness to that story, and just some uniqueness in the writing that's quite special that I really like. Which brings us to where we are today, right? Which is a very appropriate, very cool place to come. And that is the next chapter, which is chapter 13. And chapter 13 is called Gestures and Friendships. And I'm going to read that. Now, but before I start, anybody have any questions, anything you want to know? Janet, Pedro, Norma, Cheryl, anybody? Bina, you can ask on their behalf. I know you've always got tons of questions. If they don't have it. I just want to make sure, in case there's something that somebody wants to clear up. And
as you said that, okay, I always have, but I don't want to ask on anyone else's behalf. I always have questions. When these people, like all the new nobles, when they are aspirants and when they are new nobles, how actually they understand each other, that okay, these are new nobles. Is there any difference between communication or between
no, not much.
Okay.
All right, so to be an aspirant, you apply to be an aspirant, right? And there is a screening process. And of course, they want to see that you are sincere about the desire for more, the desire for learning, the desire for growing, the desire for understanding, right? That you're not saying, well, I want to be a new noble because of the status. It's mentioned very specifically in chapter 1. Status and ego, these don't go together. And everybody kind of knows this, but just in case, right? So it's very good. It's very good to check this, right? So by the time you are past the screening process, everybody is satisfied that your intent is the same as that of every other person on Nobelia, whether they be aspirant or new noble. Right? Your intent is learning, growing, Mornus. That's all you're about. Now, the only things the difference between an aspirant and a new noble is that a new noble is somebody who is sufficiently practiced and versed and knowledgeable about everything that the new nobility stand for, that they can represent the new nobility and the corporation, the new nobility corporation, which owns Nobelia, And everybody on Nobelia, when you become a new noble, you technically become an employee of the corporation, not only an employee, but also a shareholder, right? So becoming a new noble is a big deal. It has that responsibility of representing the corporation, which is the society, right? It's the same thing, just they happen to be in corporate form because there's practical reasons for this, right? And, from a legal entity point of view, it just makes everything simple and easy, right? So when you become a new noble, the only difference is you get nominated. So anybody can nominate anybody, and then you have to be approved by like 100 or 1,000 new nobles. It's a large quantity. I haven't decided exactly the number, right? Which says, yes, I feel that this person would be able to represent us appropriately, right? And this doesn't happen with everybody. And some people never even get nominated because, well, they might be, in their own bubble, a bit shy, whatever. And just who knows? There may be reasons why they wouldn't be ideal to represent the corporation, right? And that's okay, because psychologically and emotionally, every new noble feels relative to themselves that they are a perpetual aspirant. It's not like you get to be a new noble and now suddenly you stop learning. No, nothing changes, right? Nothing changes except your technical status. Yes, but it doesn't make any difference. So, and you see this in the book, right? When we are interacting with Biella, I mean, she's considered a new noble by her friends who are still fresh and fairly new aspirants, right? And they still have a bit of, you can see that they don't know all the details and ins and outs, right? So they're a bit naive still and all that. So, but there's no real difference, and the conversation makes no difference, right? So this is very important to understand. There's no actual difference, and because they celebrate difference, right? There's no I'm teaching you stuff. No, Biella goes and shares stuff that is important to her, and her sharing is so that she can become more aware of it, that she can practice it, put it into practice. Doesn't matter that she knows more or less than somebody else. She's going to be doing the exact same thing, regardless of who she's sharing to. It makes no difference how much they know relative to her. If they know more, she'll learn from it and add. If they're not aware of the topic, then that person will ask her to explain, and in her explaining to them, for them to understand more, she will now know more and learn more. And because when you explain something, you get so either way there's benefit, right? So it doesn't matter who knows more or less. They learn from each other all the time, all across. Why? Because there's no teaching on the wheel. None. Zero. It's all sharing, right? Different society, different concept, right? Different. Everything is different, right? So it's all about sharing. So there's no hierarchy, none of this, right? So there's no real actual difference between aspirants and new nobles, except that if somebody is technically a new noble, they've been around a while, and that as an aspirant, if you have a real question about, like what does it mean to be a new noble, you're not going to go and ask another aspirant. You're going to ask a new noble. Yes, as simple as that. You may discuss it with another aspirant, but you can't take their perspective as definitive. Yes, because they can't speak for the new nobility. But each new noble does speak for the new nobility, and they very often get called upon. You're living out in some remote planet, and you have the legal authority to speak for the entire new nobility. Right? They're very serious in their responsibility. So you need to, by the time you get to be accepted as a new noble, and obviously, everybody's confirming your nomination for it, they will evaluate you and say, is this person thoughtful? Is this person sober enough? And do I trust their sense of responsibility? Do I trust their judgment? And will I trust my well-being, the society to this person? That's an incredible responsibility, right? And of course, you're not going to nominate somebody, right? Because you can only be nominated by a new noble, right? No new noble is going to nominate somebody who they even have the slightest doubt that they could represent them in this way. Yes, they can represent the whole corporation, the entire society. So to be a new noble is that you have the trust of everybody else. Yes. And that's why there's such a large number that has to approve. And because, uh, well, there's a lot of reasons for it, but it ensures that the culture spread and that each aspirant has to get to know, dozens and dozens, hundreds of new nobles. And they must know them in turn really well, right? So this means that the culture gets spread. You don't have pockets, you don't have cliques and all this, right? It's very, very powerful. There's a lot of moreness to it. I don't want to go into it all because we'll be here for a long time, right? I want to read
Norma
this
is
thing.
saying that
So
okay, it
this
was
is,
good to
again,
have
yeah,
it was good to have the replay, sir.
absolutely.
Yes. And then she says
Yes,
they still keep their individuality, but do they have
absolutely.
separate thoughts?
Right, absolutely, absolutely. Now, just because that we are, let's say you and I, right, or you, me, and Bina, right? Just do you have an example? You, me, Bina. I can also say for Cheryl and for Janet, right? Because I know them. I don't know you, Pedro, so I can't speak for you. But all of us here, right? For me, learning, growth is a deep passion. I know it's the same for Bina, right?
Yeah.
And others, to greater or lesser extent, share this passion, right?
Yes.
Now, uh, in this Norma, the similarity is in the passion for learning and growing, in the passion for moreness, and for the application of this. That's very key, right? There are people who like to study this stuff intellectually, right? Professors and stuff, but they don't apply it. That's not what we're about, right? They fall in a different category. That's intellectual theoretical knowledge. Nope, that's not. So the point I'm making though is we share a similar intent. The intent for moreness, the intent for learning, the intent for growth. Yes, the intent for spirituality. Now, just because we share that same intent doesn't mean we are similar people. We are vastly different people. And every single new noble is completely different to any other. The range is incredible, the variety. But the commonality is this intent to learn, the intent to moreness, the intent to nobility. Right? So that is what binds them together. And of course, having this clarity of intent, they know precisely what their intent is. It is chapter 1, session 1, module 1 of the very start of Way-of-Impeccability. The core, the root, the starting point is called clarity of intent. It is a concept that goes in the dictionary of power. And it is something that every single new noble, and because of course they also do Way-of-Impeccability as an aspirant to do it, right? It's very clear because without clarity of intent, you kind of get lost, right? So they're all very, very clear about the intent. There's no question about it. But having the similarity of intent, because it's so broad, how exactly you connect to moreness, how you learn, this is as individual as you can go, right? So there's incredible individuality, and they celebrate difference. Remember, Norma. So it's great that you bring up this point because it's assumed, unfortunately, that when you are sharing something on a societal scale like this, that everybody's sort of the same and conforming to the society. No, not at all. Not at all. There's a great, great range of individuality, right? With this one common goal and intent. Very important. And we're going to see this now in this chapter, right? It's a chapter about 4 friends here. And you're going to see the range and difference in the friends here now. Vastly different, all of them, all very, very different. Yes, I mean, look, Biala and Ursula, two completely different people, completely different. It's very exciting, very cool point. So yeah, no, individuality is very important, right? Very important. But the passion for learning and the passion for growing and the passion for doing something about it, passion for application, this is cool. This is cool. All right, so let me screen share and then I'll read. And I'll keep an eye on the comments there. And so please comment as you go along. This is a capital R reading, which means that interruption anytime. Ask a question, comment, say, right? You know, it's part of the capital R reading, right? And normally what I do is I read through it on the Sunday in one go, or as far as the chapter will allow for time. And then in the week, we go through it line by line, detail by detail, nuance by nuance, sophistication by sophistication, layer by layer, right? It's very fun. All right, here we go. Chapter 30, Gestures and Prevention. Attunement to all while doing and being aware of that attunement. That's the ticket. Then the love flows. So do the implications, associations, connections. That's the power of attunement. It enables the flow from within. It enables the flow from within. From Dance with Life by Biala and Ursula. And this is something that's kind of a uniqueness and very particular to this book and book series. These these books that the quotes are from, they are actual books. They're not just made up, title, oh, here's a quote and I'm attributing it to this, made up book. No, they are actual real books. Some are complete works, some are just fragments, and so on, right? So, but they are actual real books, right? So not good. All right. This is Dream here from the previous chapter, so it's continuing, doesn't matter that we don't know who Dream is, but a dream is a person in this case. Dream had flitted away without saying anything else except things to collect. Ursula watched her disappear, thoughtful. Dream is an anomaly on a wheel. No one knows how or when she got here, the other said. She moves around constantly, but somehow available to her friends when needed. It's remarkable. She's almost always out in the open. The only time she's indoors to do someone's hair. Biella started walking towards one of the large branches, leading away from the mountain. I have something else to show you, Biella said neutrally. Ursula picked up on that even tone and was instantly interested. She laughed. A great way to get my attention. Biella laughed at her, but said nothing to satisfy Ursula's curiosity. What she intended was truly something to show. Biella had something else in mind first. Among the new nobility, any conversation was always an open one. Nothing a new noble ever said could not be repeated in public. Aspirants were encouraged to listen and partake in conversations at every opportunity. However, when a new noble engaged in obvious one-on-one, aspirants would usually respect the dynamic and hang back from the conversation, still listening, but not partaking. A most marvelous mechanism, providing the opportunity to observe as well as listen. Sometimes if a conversation and interaction gained a large group, the new noble would avail themselves of one of the many places designed for groups. These had hidden speakers they could key to the nano microphones in their image. Diala almost always invited any who were listening to join in, if not in conversation, then to be fully present. She loved the group dynamic. She also loved the one-on-one dynamic. Both had such distinct advantages. A few aspirants had followed Biala and Ursula for a while, but they'd come and gone, as the conversation was too specific to Ursula to hold them long. They'd picked up a fair group when Dream did Ursula's hair. That always happened since it was a treat to watch Dream work, to simply be near her. An oddity had caught Biala's eye. Aspirants, no matter how diverse, had an abstract similarity, a product of their intent and focus. New nobles made an effort to view others and the world with intent and focus in mind. It told one much. Hayla had noticed an anomalous intent and focus in someone who had been following them. This person had stayed further away than aspirants did, which would make listening difficult. Hayla did not recognize the person, despite a lingering familiarity. She had not focused on them too much to unravel the mystery, as there'd been no real need. However, the mystery person had not joined in close with the group which had gathered to watch Dream. Odd. Biella at first thought they might have left, but as soon as she and Ursula started walking, the person again emerged. They'd been waiting. It seemed evident that they did not want to come close for fear of being recognized. They did not seem familiar with Tree City either. Biella smiled. She always assumed a good reason for the unexplained, but she was curious. The branch they were on was long, straight, and narrower than the other large branches. Their follower would not be able to follow too closely while they were on the first bottom. Ursula was paying attention. Her comment had had another meaning at the time, but it served to sharpen Ursula's attention. She indeed had something to show Ursula. First, the mystery person. At the end of the straight path, they could see the branch make a turn. But after that, it was obscured by a dense cluster of vertical branches and a variety of other plants. As Biala reached the branch end, she took the turn to the right. It curved for a few paces, then curved back to the left. They passed through a gate of foliage to reveal a magnificent sky garden. The large branch looped all the way around in a circle, about 15 or 20 paces across. Vertical branches, or trees, lined the outside of the circle. The trees connected to each other across the circle with what seemed like flower lines. Fantastic flowering creepers and vines crisscrossed the circle at all angles, creating a merry profusion of color which danced and swung in the breeze. Flutterbys and birds were seen in great profusion, all extremely active and lively, their excitement palpable. They seemed to be very actively celebrating. Ursula wanted to stop and observe, but Biella sped up. "This is a year-round phenomenon," Biella yelled when Ursula caught up. "The noise tremendous. Birds and flutterbys come from all over the area. They don't all come at once, and they never come twice. It's from something the flowers give off. Normally I would stay and spend some time, but..." Biella had completed the circle. "If I have timed this right." She stepped through the hanging foliage which covered the opening back to the straight part of the large branch, bumping into the stranger as she did. "Oops, so sorry," Diala said, grabbing the stranger's arm to make sure that she did not fall. There were safety nets, but still. The stranger dropped her head, mumbled something incoherent, and tried to keep going as if it was nothing. But Ursula had been paying attention. She'd followed Biala closely. Now the stranger was effectively trapped between her and Biala. "Hayla!" Ursula exclaimed with genuine surprise. Now Biala recognized her also, with the same surprise. Hayla Clarence Lequan was one of the delegates. She'd never said one word in all the time either Biala or Ursula had been near her. She'd always seemed somewhat disconnected. Her blonde hair was hidden by a bushy black wig, which all but covered her face. Now, however, her eyes were bright, alert, and embarrassed. Biella reined in her surprise, replacing it with openness. No judgment of any kind. She added kindness and softness. It was okay. Whatever the reasons, she assumed they were good ones. She'd wait. If they came, came. The delegates and everyone else were free to do as they pleased. "Oh, it doesn't matter anymore," Hayla said, removing the wig. She smiled with intelligence and intensity. "The difference remarkable. I will tell all. Is there?" "Yes, there certainly is," said Biala, moving back the way she and Ursula had just come. She stepped through to the circular path, but instead of going left, she turned right. In the area between the two openings stood a thick, tall, vertical branch tree. Vines and creepers hung down around the trunk, all but hiding it from view. Diala stepped through the skirting of leaves and stems. The area a few paces all around the trunk was clear. Steps protruded from the trunk, spiraling up and around. Diala started climbing. "Not far," she smiled. They looped around the trunk 3 times, climbing approximately 20 paces vertically. Diala led them along a stout but fairly short branch, which had a twin parallel to it a few paces above their heads. At the end of the stout branch they were on was one of the swing benches. The branch spread into a small platform around the swing bench, allowing them to get into the front. It was suspended from the branch above. They seated themselves with Hayla in the middle. Biella lowered them through the opening. When she was done, they were in a perfect position to view and enjoy the splendor of the sky garden. "These flowers are very special," Diala explained. "They give off fruit, nectar, and pollen, highly desirable to birds and flutterby. But only once. If you watch closely, You'll see none of the birds and flutterbys stay long. It's a marvelous way to spread the species. They come from far. Not that many, but there are more of these gardens on Nobelia. The flowers will only grow in certain conditions, not growing too close to another colony. That's what they are. A colony of different plants, living in a complex symbiosis. It's one of the most complex life forms on Nobelia. Still a mystery, though, how some of the birds and flutterbys are attracted from great distances. One of the many compelling reasons Nobelia was chosen for the School of Nobility. There were many, many uninhabited worlds at the time, still are. Some would have been much easier to inhabit, but this one has many such unique mysteries. We're sound shielded. We'd hardly be able to hear ourselves otherwise, Diala added. They could hear the fantastic chorus of the thousands upon thousands of birds, that had a pleasant volume, combined with the wind in the trees and other natural sounds, a delightful symphony. Controls are built into the bench. They stared at the incredible spectacle for a while, giving Hayla the opportunity to tell her story at her own choosing. I heard you, Biella, talking to Illumina after the telling of the origin story. Hayla started. I don't remember all of it, but this stayed with me. What good would the world be without joy and happiness and sweetness and love and fun? We know this, but we also need constant reminders, and much, much more importantly, what we really, really need. Hayla continued relating what she'd heard Biala say to Illumina. What the world really, really needs is a concrete and real model, an example, an exemplification of what to be, what to strive for. Imaginations are limited. Realness is needed, so it can be copied and shared. That's how most of us learn, from copying. It's very, very hard to learn via imagination and creating. That's the personal part. That's the work on your end. Your service, Illumina, is providing a very real and concrete model for living. Not something hypothetical and unreachable, but real, here now. Just being near you and knowing you is enough to transfer the knowledge, and thus the capability for others to also partake of that marvelousness. A very, very great service indeed. No preaching or sermonizing or remonstrating or shoulds or shouldn'ts. No pressure of any kind, no judgments. You just are what you are. A fantastic gift to be enjoyed in any way anyone wants. But folks like me can be dense, and perhaps sometimes will need the tiniest of hints that a contribution would be appreciated, and they'd be like, oh, okay, oops, I didn't realize, of course, I'd be more than happy to help. Then, with that contribution, their joy and pleasure is fulfilled and completed. It's as that is how most see the world, nothing for nothing. If they hadn't contributed, they wouldn't be able to use the value they require. But you have to just be thoroughly and purely. Just be who you are. Be pureness. You are already. Just immerse yourself in that. Hayla paused, catching her breath. Hayla had overheard a most unusual conversation. Diala had been repeating something she'd said to Illumina ages ago, long before their coming to Nobelia. They'd been on a somewhat isolated planet with little of their own resources at the time. The contribution Biella was referring to was assistance with food, money, or a place to stay. Illumina would spend all the time being of phenomenal service to people, simply by virtue of her interaction with them. But they did not always make the connection. Illumina herself could use a bit of help. The conversation repeat had been for the benefit of some aspirants who were about to undertake a similar trip. The new nobility easily had the means to finance all aspirants, but being without resources was a fundamental part of becoming a new noble. Knowing how to manage and thrive in adverse circumstances was imperative. The insight into the psychology needed, invaluable. Hayla continued. I totally felt so much of this. feeling identityless unless you can boil yourself down into a one-sentence pitch. The inability to trust you'll know how to handle future issues as they arise. Though for me, it just results in anxiety and a sort of grasping need to try to control uncontrollable stuff rather than hanging around toxic people. And the feeling as though my worth is tied up in how much stuff I've got done today or how much credit I made. I don't judge anyone else through these filters, yet I judge myself through them. My other is always trying to assure me there's more to my worth than whether or not I got my to-do list done. But I can't seem to internalize it. Anyway, just seems so synchronistic to be here. Then I heard that story. She looked intensely at them and said, "Peace, friend." Hayla made a hand sign for peace and friendship customary on her world, which is this. Right? Not this one, but this one. Right? That's the friendship, right? There's a comment. Sorry, but hearing them, I keep thinking of London and UK. Now, if only. Lisa's here. Brilliant, brilliant. Hello, wonderful Lisa. Hello, hello, hello. Oh, I'm thrilled you're here. It makes me super happy. Makes me super happy. Gestures and friendships. I love it. I love it. They are all such special friends to me. So it's very powerful that you hear. So, back to Hayla. So Hayla makes this friendship sign. Right? That's from her planet. That's a big deal. And we'll come into it in a moment. Biala and Ursula responded in kind. "Peace, friend," they said in unison, displaying the hand sign. By joining the middle and ring fingers, spreading the others, arm out. A significant gesture they remembered from the briefing. Only used if sincerely meant, implying a commitment to friendship, one taken very seriously, seldom offered so early in a relationship. By offering accepted, they indicated to one another they were skipping past the usual preliminaries. The connection now as if they'd been good friends for a long time. Conversation and topics could go straight to the most relevant issue. No preambles or unnecessary details would be needed. Biella was delighted, Ursula no less so, even though this turn of events also somewhat puzzling. Something was still missing. Hayla had changed too dramatically. "This is great, Hayla. I look forward to more interaction. I'm happy to converse anytime," Biella said somewhat formally, honoring the friendship gesture, a big deal to her. And also, she assumed, to Hayla. "I too extend my heart and my goodwill, my ear and my time," Ursula said with feeling. Hayla had touched her deeply. Biella said somewhat to herself. "I had another longer comment to what you said, but it's not with me anymore." Then to Hayla, going right back to the heart of what Hayla had said. "I was wondering about past events, which were agonized over in this manner, and how exactly they transpired." "I'm really not sure where it comes from," Hayla said. "I do a lot of soul-searching and introspective thinking, so it's unusual for me to truly have no idea where one of my issues comes from. I kind of feel like I'm not fulfilling my humanness if I'm not actively working on emotional and spiritual growth." Wow, big statement. That is one of my biggest hurdles to being able to live in the moment. The nagging idea that whatever I'm doing, I should be doing something else. Or that whatever I did do, I could have done it a bit better. Don't know if it's some of my world's neurotic busyness ethic or what, but it's so contrary to the way I actually view the world and how people should be living life. Diala is appreciative of Hayla's frank, informal tone. They jump straight into the topic of her heart. Biella as keen as Ursula to hear the full story. Hayla had wide, dark eyes. Her features portrayed fun lying just underneath the surface, contrasting delightfully with her earnest, insightful eyes. In her mouth and smile lay a mystique, a knowledge of glimpses of worlds unseen, a spiritual side, plus an understanding of travail. Hayla lapsed into responsive silence. There was more, much more, but for now she was inviting an extended response, something to tailor the rest of her story to. Ursula, content to observe in solidarity, the letter responsible. That's most interesting. If I can put it in terms for me, it's maybe an issue of appropriateness. If it's the question, it becomes how do we know we are acting appropriately? Not medial sense, but in the context of our entire lives, in the global and universal context. How do we know what we're doing is good as a cog in that great machine? Biella maintained Hayla's informal tone. This is a very big deal to me, as I have lived my adult life making every effort to do just that. So I don't know if I have any answers, but I can say what I do. For me, it's a tuning into the greater flow of things, that which is the pattern of my life, past, but extrapolated into the future from the present. Added to that is paying attention to my intents. Those are very connected to the process. Hayla was paying attention, as was Ursula, also paying attention to Hayla. Biala continued. From all of that, there's the tuning in to what I want to do in any given circumstance. What I want to do or feel like is intimately and inextricably connected to my inner sense of rightness. Not the moral rightness, that too, but it goes beyond that. The rightness is tied to appropriateness. It's connected to that line we don't cross. More than that, it's the rightness of no doubts, but not the no doubts of the surface mind or the ego or the person of society and family and work and such. It's the rightness of the grand scheme of my life. What is good in that sense? It's the rightness of good, capital G, good. Diala felt around inside. When rightness and want intertwine and are the same, that's when we start to connect, to truly connect. That connection of what I want, because it's so intimately connected to my inner sense of rightness, to what is good, is astonishing. What makes it astonishing is that following what I want, no matter how much it may seem like indulgence, following that want is the most supreme act of trust that leads to awesomeness. I've been crazy enough to follow it, when that meant stopping everything, going against every normal, sensible thought. But doing that taught me to trust my inner wanting implicitly, trusting utterly, for I have come to realize there is no way I can want what is bad. For I have come to realize there is no way I can want what is bad or indulgent, not deep down. It always works out in the most incredibly good ways when I trust myself and my wants like this. Now I always only do what I feel like. I trust that my devotion to the concept of appropriateness is connected to what I feel like, to what I want to do. It has come to be that what I feel like doing is also what's appropriate, and not just what is appropriate in the immediate context, but in overall long-term context. For me, there's a sense of impeccability connected to whatever it is I am feeling like doing. Biala looked at Ursula and Hayla, and I saw a comment. The rightness of good. Yes, exactly. And it's capital G good, Norma. Not regular good, capital G good, right? Which is means she's looking at it very deeply in the full context of her life and the overallness, right, of whole of everything. So capital G good, right? So the rightness of good, capital G good, capital R rightness. Biella looked at Hayla and Ursula. They were with her. Biella continued. It's a journey of trust. I persevered, unfaced in the overall logic of it at first. Then over time I saw the results come back at me. I was fortunate initially to be able to see how things worked out and came to pass, how the magic in the present connected to the intents and actions of the past. Miraculous and incredible every time. Those wonders were and are mostly in small, small, tiny little things. Things only I could know are miracles. Also because I make the effort to pay attention. Those wonders are mostly for me only. They are intimately personal, fantastic connections pertinent to me and my most inner life. But if I don't pay attention, I might not see the connections to what came before, and the intent of them, and how it all works out later. Biella felt a stirring in Hayla and decided to wrap it up. There is more, much more, unhooking from convention for one thing, but that's some of the heart of it. Too long to explain it all now. Biella laughed happily, opening the door for Hayla to share in any direction she chose. Thank you, Hayla. You inspired me to lay a part of it out again. A gift every time. Thank you. I love the alternate perspectives provided. Every time is different. Not an easy matter to communicate, as there are so many factors. Biala left off, handing over to Hayla. Here we end. Next chapter is Hayla's story. Brilliant, brilliant. I love this. I love this. Now, this story, most of the other chapters have somewhat been a story pertinent to a chapter with some general, longer-term overall connectivity. But this story with Hayla now, this goes into multiple chapters, right? You're going to really get into detail in this whole story. There's a lot that's going to happen, and some magic as well, some very special magic coming up in some of the later chapters. So very profound. Bina, any comments?
Oh, I was just okay. Let me unmute myself. Okay, yes, I'm on mute. Oh, this is not really a comment because I'm so immersed into the story right now.
How do you feel?
Oh, connected.
Oh,
Yeah,
oh.
it was so pulling in kind of like okay after very long, so maybe that is why. So I'm totally into this right now.
Brilliant, brilliant. Now, when I was saying in the beginning, I was,
Yes,
right? I was saying about uh, feeling the Mornus through the story, right? Now,
yes,
in the way in which Biella and by extension Ursula's a very quick study, right? So she's very, very rapidly, very much behaving like a new noble, right? But how Biella and Ursula immediately respond and react to Hayla. Obviously, something's going on with Hayla, but they react very differently, right? They don't just, there's an acceptance to it and a trust, yes? And for me, this is very beautiful. The way that in this unusual circumstance, they don't say, but gosh, Hayla, are you like, okay, what's wrong with you? What's going on? And none of that, right?
yes,
Right? They just, they just accept that there's a sense to it. They trust that her intent is good. It's going to come out later a little bit. And we'll hear the story, right? But there's no rush to do it. There's no pressure. And by implication, the questions don't imply an inadvertent assessment or judgment or anything like that. No, if you don't want to tell the story, that's okay too. Isn't that fantastic?
freedom.
Isn't this just this little brief interlude, right? I mean, Ayla was effectively like kind of, almost semi-stalking or following it. But she doesn't, there's some weird complexity going on. But Biala's reaction is so completely anomalous to the usual. It changes everything, right? And for Hayla, when she realizes this, she's at least quick enough to understand. And she makes the friendship gesture, right? She says, peace, friend, and makes the friendship gesture because of this profound way. And now, in Biala's experience, right, that she's not acting just willy-nilly, casually, and letting things happen just any old way. She is aware of the mechanisms involved in which to connect deeply with another so that you can become very deep, close friends very quickly. This is part of Biala's openness, Biala's friendship policy when she opens this way, and she deliberately opened to Hayla in this way, right? So yes, Lisa, the freedom to just be, capital B. This is the point and purpose of the entire new nobility, right? It is the corporate mandate, right? To be, right? To promote being, the freedom to just be. So yes, all of what they do revolves around being, and not only knowing what it means to be, right? But to have the freedom to just be, to afford others the freedom to just be. And this is exactly what Biella does with Hayla. If you want to make friends with somebody, make space. And in the capital H hearing program, there's a huge part of it which is called making space. It's a simple concept, but it's also incredibly complex and profound and deep. And we see here how Biella, as an expert who is exquisitely expert at this, how she makes space for Hayla. It's only a few moments that maybe go by, but inside Biella, there's just books and tons, and it's like days maybe of processing and time and thinking. Long time goes on inside Biella, even though it goes very rapidly in real time. It's a lot going on inside Biella, and all of the skill of hers of making space is right there. She deliberately, consciously, knowingly is making space for Hayla. And she does this to be, right? Making space to be. Not just making space to be, but to share. Of course, if you have space to be, then you can share. And sharing is always a choice. It's free. You can't ask for sharing, you can create space for it, yes. Nancy says, I love your background. So much positive energy. Is it real or a painting? Nancy, I'm not sure. This is a very unique a background picture because it exactly has that ambivalence between, is it a painting or is it real? And it's why I chose it. Now, another reason for my background behind me is that um, it is on Nobelia. They it's an oral culture for one thing, deliberately oral culture, or primarily oral, but also they spend much of their time outdoors, right? Outdoors, learning, discussing, hanging out in the gardens, and there are all these wonderful gardens on Nobelia. It's a garden planet, right? And all the different gardens have different names, they have different intents to them. There's the garden of introspection, the garden of extrapolation, whatever. They got names, and I've got them written down somewhere, right? All these wonderful gardens. So this is very much looking to represent the Nobelia. And Nobelia-Living is a synonym for the style of living and what we just saw Biala do. That's Nobelia-Living, to make space for another, to have the freedom to just be. This is core to Nobelia-Living. Of course, the discussions that are going to follow, they get really deep and involved. That's Nobelia-Living again. And then there's the application of the learning, right? In the way you walk, the way you sit, the way you talk, the way you hold your face, the way you do your activities, whether it be sports or drama or creativity or art, doesn't matter, whatever. They do a lot of that, right? They're very active. They do a lot of stuff. They're always busy doing something, right? But in the doing, they're always, capital B, practicing their Mornus. They're practicing being, right? They're practicing freedom of being. Plus, they are practicing independence of being, right? It's one thing to have the freedom to be, but if you don't have independence of being, you're always vulnerable, you're always dependent, and so on others, their opinions, approval, whatever, right? Independence of being means you are complete as a person. And when you have independence of being, right, then you are truly in a space to be able to create space for someone else to have the freedom to be, even if they haven't quite yet acquired independence of being. your independence of being is like this island bubble, right? And it's like a garden here. It gives you that space to be. It's beautiful, complex, sophisticated, wonderful, magical. Right? So yeah, the background is a very big deal. I change them quite regularly, and you'll see every time I do a live, I have, and in the story, I'll show you in a second. Yeah, it's a great comment, Nancy. Great comment. I love it. Love it. And such a wonderful summation as always, Lisa. The freedom to be. It's integral to the whole story. I'll show you a little bit here. Share screen share. There we go. The way in which this is presented, um, as part of the Mornus project, there's a lot involved, and the presentation is not quite normal. I was reading it from my core file, um, because I haven't made this chapter into the course yet. I'm a bit behind, but I'll show you in a second. And just some more of these backgrounds and these photos, right? So this is the start, the introduction, just a little short video just to connect to this, manicured. There's wildness, but also it's manicured, and there's a blend between the two. So it's quite a big deal. Come out of here. And now we see this is how you would partake of this as course, right? Not in the book form, but in the course form. And you have all these different backgrounds. So I'm just going to go through them. I won't read everything because this is one of the chapters. But you'll see every now and then, you'll see the Mornus. Oh, I haven't filled in all the pictures. Oh, here we go. And some of these I have to add more. I haven't finished adding all the backgrounds. But you see, this is another view of Nobelia. You see, these all I'll have to fill in still, but I haven't had a chance to do all of them. But here we get more wild, a little bit more remote, and given a view of Nobelia. I think I have to go to some of the earlier chapters where I've more thoroughly and extensively added views of the art is very important, and it's in the story. Art is absolutely integral to Nobelia. It's everywhere. Everywhere there's art, and it's that chapter about the young man's dream and earnest dream. It's all about how to bring art everywhere, right? And architecture. All across Nobelia, you have this incredible types of architecture, right? They really go to the extremes of expressing art in every way possible. Doesn't matter. Art is in absolutely everything. So you have these fantastic architectural creations all across. Beside the gardens. Okay, and not much in this one. I thought there was more. Let's see another two. Oh, remember where? Maybe. I don't know. I've got a file somewhere that has lots of these in it. So I don't know where they are in the story now, but I have tons of these pictures. I think some of them aren't loading right away. These gardens, they're a very big feature of the story. I don't know where I put them into the story. Yeah, there's still a lot of work to be done on this. It's a massive, massive, massive project. There's a lot involved. I think sometimes, it hasn't loaded yet, so we might not be seeing it because I'm scrolling too quickly for pictures. The big pictures. But yeah, it's a very big deal. All the art and the gardens. It's a very big. I have probably thousands of pictures that go. It's a massive project, all of this stuff. So at some point, I'll publish the book as a regular book, and then I'll also publish it because I have already put into actual physical book form, Way of Impeccability, where it's all printed out, nice big books, and you can see the layout of it. All this in this kind of larger form, like a coffee table book, and I'll do it with this as well. It'll probably be a couple of them. Way of Impeccability, I think it's 17 of them or 9 of them, something like that. Anyway, so yeah, it's a big deal. Lot involved with the art and the pictures. A very, very particular picture. Quite beautiful, quite beautiful. Little out of focus, which makes it very nice. Gives it that artness to it. And I love that. I love where it's an overlap between art and photo. You're not quite sure. Did somebody paint this, or is this an actual? This is an actual garden, by the way. This is a photograph of an actual garden. Just to answer your question, technically, but it does look like a painting. Like a painting. Too wonderful. Bina, what do you feel about the story? What do you think? Any more comments on this?
Yeah, it's like sometimes you don't have to say things. I'm feeling
I
more
know, I
emotional.
know.
Yeah,
Oh,
I always
oh,
have something to say about this, but today I feel a bit more emotional about this. Like
oh,
when this,
wonderful, wonderful.
yes, because I feel that okay, we are getting closer to this type of reality around us and
Yes,
then within
yeah,
us. Um, and what a world
yes.
it would
Us
be.
personally in our lives, absolutely. It's more and
Yes,
more.
yes, yes. So, but what the world it would be when everywhere and like everyone is like this
Yeah,
and they are living like this. When they have the freedom to be,
yes.
when they don't
And
do when we don't do things out of ego or any
yes,
superiority any kind,
yes,
but just being. We assume that okay, at least this was I cannot say about others, but it was the idea when people say that okay, oh, just be and then you have to get rid of your ego. I was assuming that okay, it is about getting rid of everything, and then you don't need to be in any kind of excellence because excellence is going to be connected to competition and competing each other, which of course it's not a good thing, so you cannot be. So the idea of excellence was so entrenched with the idea of competition or competing each other. So for me it was like, oh duh. So now when people are like okay, they will not do anything at all. Like okay, if they are spiritual, they are into
yeah,
spirituality and they just want to be, so they are not going to do anything other than this. And now this way of impeccability and the Mornus and especially new nobles, they have changed the whole paradigm for me. That no, this is not because it's all about intent, as you were mentioning above before. That okay, this is the very first thing, the basic foundation of way of impeccability and Mornus, to have the trust in the and the clarity of intent, and of course the goodness of intent. When your intent is good, when you are not riding over by your own ego or anyone else competition, then everything becomes fun. You acquire
yes,
excellence in any
yeah,
field or any aspect of life, not because that it is going to make you superior, but because that you enjoyed that. You were enjoying all these things. And this is so less energy consuming because it is not going to stress you. You're not going to bother by anyone else, and you don't need to care about like okay, how other people are perceiving me, how they have okay their judgments, anything, nothing. But when you do just things without having any sort of this nonsense, how much energy we will have for other things in life. Because we I feel that okay, but okay, I'm not into this majorly in my life. Okay, uh, still, of course, I need to take care of a lot of things, but I feel that, okay, I don't do things for any other reason than I enjoy doing this. I love doing that. That's why that is the reason, and it is getting more and more in my life now. But and I feel that, okay, I have so much energy, my whole focus and attention on those things which I really enjoy, and that is so important. I
Crucial.
cannot explain it. I cannot explain it well, because we need to experience this. The comfort, the stress-free state of being cannot be explained. It has to be experienced. That is the only thing I have right now.
It
Because I
has to be experienced. Yes. Application. Application. Application.
like when we are doing
Practice.
anything and we are enjoying this, not because that,
Yes.
okay, oh, it is going to give me some reward, or I will get something out of it, or okay, it will make me superior. Nothing. Just because I like this, I'm doing this. This is so stress free, so less energy consuming thing. And I cannot explain that feeling at that time, because again, you need to experience that. It has to be experienced.
Yeah.
It can't be tell, it
Yeah.
can't be shared completely.
Yeah. Very
Thinking
powerful.
about the whole
And
world
one,
being
yeah.
like this.
Bye bye, Norma. Bye bye, Norma. Bye bye, Norma. I'm going to share my picture file in a moment a bit more. I just want to comment. One of the intents of doing the lives is to share an alternative paradigm of being. Yes, in order to have freedom of being, we have to also be aware of the paradigm that we're in. Our culture, right? The whole world's culture it all takes place for the most part within the superiority paradigm. And that's what a paradigm is. It's pervasive, it's everywhere, it's all over, it influences everything, right? It's a paradigm. But we have to be aware that there can be an alternative paradigm. And not only is Nobelia such an alternate paradigm, these lives, the way in which you and I interact, the space we make for everybody who comes and all those who do come, right? You know, Lisa and Cheryl and Norma and Janet and everybody, right? Who we know and have interacted with us. There's a space for you to be, a space for you to have freedom of being, a space for you to share. There's no competition here. There's no comparisons here. There's no ambition here. We're not doing things because we want to show how clever we are and how none of that applies, right? We're just sharing. We are doing things from an alternative paradigm perspective. This takes quite a bit of doing for some to comprehend. They assume that I'm preaching. They assume I'm looking for followers. They assume I'm saying, oh, Nobelia is the way to be, and therefore everything else is rubbish compared to Nobelia. They assume this. That's comparative mindset. That's superiority paradigm logic. It has nothing to do with it, right? So this is a different paradigm. And it takes a bit of doing to become aware of this alternative paradigm and to unhook from the defaults that are so entrenched in us that we don't even realize are defaults. That's what the paradigm does. And it's very tricky. So the very big deal, if you go back to the earlier, and I have it all on YouTube, right, or in the guide in group, you can go through every single live we've done and follow through all of them, and you'll see in the beginning, spent tons of time and energy we did on this paradigm shifting, paradigm sharing, new paradigm, different paradigm, alternative paradigm, and the intent behind this, right? Our intents for doing this are none of the usual intents. It matters not to me and to Bina if anybody watches this or not. And by the way, anybody can come on Zoom. If you guys want to come and join in the chat, like especially in the week, like now, today, I was doing most of the reading. But in the week, we have a lot of discussion. We go over every line of detail. You want to join? Come on Zoom. Not a problem. Just let me know. I'll send you the link. You're more than welcome. Anybody, more than welcome. All right. So I'm going to, Nancy, I want to go back to that file. This is just a file of all the pictures that I've used or going to use in the program, in the new Nobility program. But the reason I stopped on this particular picture here is this is I love this particular picture. It's absolutely a quintessential perspective shifting picture. Now, perspective shifting goes into the dictionary of power from way of impeccability, and it's a huge concept, a huge big deal. It's one of the most core central power tools. But look at this. When you first look at it, you might say, "Oh, this is the ocean, a little bit windy and all that." But then you look a bit closer and you say, really? No, is this the ocean? Right? I say, no, maybe not. And you say, oh, it's sand. And then you look a bit more and you say, well, maybe not. And then it's snow. But you can't be sure, right? The magic of perspective shifting. Snow, sand, water, who knows? Might even be something else entirely. Maybe some kind of sludge, like a big chemical pond that the stuff is there. Who knows? Maybe something else. And that's something. It's a fantastic picture. Absolutely fantastic picture. Here's more of, Nobelia gardens. Just too wonderful. And then, the abstract art also that I enjoy to represent conceptions. Maybe picture of Biella in the forest. I just love this, I just find it too brilliant. And some of these are just filler, pictures that I will just use wherever or not at all, maybe, it all depends. Just stuff that I accumulate, lots of it, for whatever reason. Backgrounds, which, I sometimes use and then use as a general background, and you put the art on top of that. So this is the background that's for the introduction to the Mornus project we use. It's just, you get to see the variety of the depth involved, because each of these represents perspectives and moreness and understanding. Hey, why did it go dark? I don't know. Scrolling through it. I don't know what that. Oh. Just to be used, to be used, to be used. Yeah. I think this one is more of this art and photo combined. I have no idea why this is in here. For some reason. This is in the story chapter 2. This came up. It's a crow, not some contemplation. Yeah, not all will be used, but sometimes I crop them, like to not make it too specific, like that one that had the particular hat there, particular ethnic hat. Maybe there's also a little bit specific. That's a bit more futuristic, different architecture. The architecture on Nobelia is a whole little book and all on its own. I have a huge different file of that. Different stuff. Just fun. That picture was used. Let me go back. Just, the thoughtfulness, the moreness. It's beautiful to represent the deeper intent of those that are Nobelia, right? Thoughtful, connected to moreness, sophisticated also. Earnestness is a very big deal. Very big. There's a bit of a desert, and there's a story that takes place in the desert, except there's no road in that desert like this. You can only get there by glider, and you can only walk out. A very unique desert valley. It's in a later book, a very, very deep, profound story called The Consolidation that takes place in that. Nobelia is a wondrous place. So that was kind of a nice picture. Now again, I think somebody gave me some grief about beautiful woman pictures. Now, first of all, I'm looking for attitudes. I'm looking for pictures that don't have attitude, right? You see some models, they or just photos of any woman, whether they model or not. They're a bit surly, a bit grumpy, a bit spoilt, a bit petty, a bit childish, a bit vain, a bit self-important, etc. It's very hard to find pictures of people that don't have such attitudes. And this is now the new nobility. They made every effort to not have such nonsense in their lives. Right? It's very difficult to find that. And of course, the predominance of pictures tend to be of what are conventionally regarded as beautiful women. But I don't necessarily share that view of conventional beauty. I find some of the conventionally beautiful people to be not so beautiful. Why? Because I see the attitude behind it and underneath it. So I'm not looking for conventional beauty like this particular woman. I mean, I know some people might say she's very plain and, she's got the skin thing and whatever. But to me, this is a very beautiful picture because I don't see any nonsense attitude here, right? Or a lot of it, right? I mean, this is an earnest, thoughtful, sober, serious person. I see this in people that I know, like Cheryl, Norma, Lisa. I see this in you. I see the same. It's beautiful to me, right? So I see beauty very differently. I see character. This is what is beautiful. Now, character does have some physical representations, right? It does come through in our features, but I'm not pursuing beauty for beauty's sake. I'm pursuing pure character. That's my head. So this is the ideal that I'm looking to represent, character. Same thing with the gardens, they are representing abstract qualities and Mornus. Not all babies I find beautiful either, by the way. I know a lot of people are shocked when I say that. Some babies, they've got horrible attitudes that they represent. They come out from they go, not very nice at all. When you look at that, when you look at the deeper character, you see life and you see people very differently, including babies. Anyway, I'll continue forever in this file. It's a wonderful file. I mean, I just started this. It's tons. But I was trying to share a bit, Nancy, just to get a view of the deeper combination between art and photo and reality, right? To blend it all together. Look at all these wonderful abstract patterns. Some of those are barks, by the way, close up of bark, um, or leaves or whatever, just love it, and all to be used, to be used, to be used. Yeah. Lots that goes into all of this, and that's just the point of it: exquisiteness, moreness, layeredness. Yeah? End on a nice garden, right? There we go. This is also a particular story. Solitary tree. It's a bigger tree than this, but still, it's on this great grass plain. There's always moreness to all of this stuff. There's always moreness to everything. It's a wonderful story, the story of the solitary tree. It's an independent story, but it does eventually. Well, Biella tells a story, so it's part of the Biella series. Very deep, very profound story. The seeds of goodness. Seeds of goodness. Very cool, very cool. All right. Any questions, comments before we go?
It was just normal saying that, okay, Nancy says
Yes.
that, okay, I love your background, or you know that. So much positive
Yeah.
energy, and you must schedule you later, so
Yeah. I saw Norman. All right, brilliant. But that's cool. It's good. We can end here and continue. Again, we'll do in the week. We might not come every day in the week like we did before because we've got a lot of other stuff going on that needs to be done. But we'll try to. We'll try to come every day. And
yes.
it might
Yeah.
not be 2 hours, might just be an hour, even half an hour, but 10 o'clock, right? 10 o'clock Mountain Time, 10 o'clock Arizona time. We'll do it. Very cool. Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Any other comments
Okay,
from
everyone.
anybody?
Thank you so much. Yes, thank you so much for being here. And not because that, okay, so you'll always say that, Bina, you say thank you. So it feels like, okay, there's a subtle pressure that they have to come. No, I'm just saying thank you because you guys come and share your energy and share your comments.
Yes.
And it
Yes.
gives me so much more to think about, so much more to
Oh, yeah.
know.
It's a gift.
So that's why I feel
Yeah,
appreciative. So
yeah.
for
Yeah,
me,
me
this is
too.
the way to
Me
appreciate.
too. Me too.
And
Me
as we
too.
always say, that
Yeah,
appreciation and acknowledgement is not for the other person, it is for myself. When I
exactly.
appreciate others, I actually emphasize the value you guys are contributing here for myself.
Exactly.
It's a very selfish business here. I'm just thinking
Exactly.
about myself and I appreciate you.
Exactly.
I
Exactly.
emphasize the value I'm getting. And every
Yeah.
single time when I repeat that, I get more and more value every single time. So that's why
Yes.
that is the only reason behind that, at least the obvious one for me.
Yes.
And I feel so great to be part
Yeah.
of this, to be there.
Yeah.
And because in this whole world, when we have so many other things to do and take care of, this this just 1 or 2 hour window here where we can connect to our own morness.
Yeah.
And it's a brilliant opportunity. It's a brilliant
Yeah.
opportunity. There is no nonsense, at least for me, or that no
Yeah.
nonsense, no ego, nothing, just sharing and
Yes.
opening that small window for 2 hours where you guys can come and share your mornings with us, and we can share our mornings, because this mornings is innate to all of us. Thank you so
Correct.
much again, sir,
Correct.
for
Correct.
continuing
It
this, and
simply needs
we
that
will do our
environment
best.
to flower.
Yes,
Yes.
yes,
That's what we're looking to do, to share this different paradigm in which that
exactly.
mourners can flower.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. So see you guys hopefully tomorrow. If not tomorrow,
Yes.
we are going to come
Oh
in
yeah.
this
Oh
during
yeah.
this week,
We'll
whenever
make a
we will
big
can.
effort to be here tomorrow. We'll make a big effort.
Yes. Yes. Okay, sir.
Bye
Bye for
bye,
now, and
everybody,
bye
and thank
everyone. Yes.
you for being here. Much appreciated. Again, this is a joy that we share. It's,
Yes.
it's free and open. It's always free and open. No expectations of any kind. Brilliant. Bye bye,
Okay.
everybody. Bye bye, bye bye, bye bye. See
Bye.
you all tomorrow. Bye bye.